Hello everyone, this is Terry with Futures.io, and as always, I would like to thank you for joining us today. It's my pleasure to welcome back Barrett from NinjaTrader for today's webinar, Guided Tour of New NinjaTrader User-Driven Features. Throughout the webinar, if you have a question, please feel free to type them into the questions box. We'll do our best to answer them at the end of the event. This webinar will be recorded and posted on the Futures.io website within 24 to 48 hours. If you're watching this afterwards on YouTube, please do us a favor and give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed the webinar. And as always, please feel free to share, comment, subscribe to our channel. It really helps us a lot. For trading news, events, and information, follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter using @Futures.io. And now, without further delay, I'll hand it over to Brett. You'll get the pop-up again to share your screen.
Okay.
All right, looking good.
All right, guys. Thanks again for having me in the Futures.io webinar room. Again, my name is Brett Barrett. I'm the product manager over at NinjaTrader. Before I get too far, I'd like to first notice that we're at the 10-year anniversary of the Big Mike and our Futures.io forum. So I'd like to congratulate the Futures.io staff, Big Mike, and the Futures.io community. 10 years, that's a lot of time. I've been at NinjaTrader myself coming on 10 years here in December. So I've definitely seen the change in the ecosystem of the tools out there to support new traders, the impact of Futures.io, how things have changed in the last 10 years in electronic futures trading in general, and how NinjaTrader is continuing to adapt to support those new needs of traders in today's trading today's markets. So today's webinar is going to be a tour and best new NinjaTrader user-driven features. I'm going to spend a few minutes to highlight some of the new functionality features that we've been working on in the NinjaTrader product over the past 6 to 8 months or so. We've had a few key releases in those time, and I'll kind of run through some of the new features we've implemented in the recent releases of NinjaTrader. This webinar is going to be geared towards those of you that are familiar with NinjaTrader. If you are new to NinjaTrader, haven't even heard of what NinjaTrader is, haven't had your first trial or worked with it at all, I encourage you to head over to ninjatrader.com, where we'll have a complete webinar and new user training session information available on our website to get users up and going with NinjaTrader quickly, and can also sign up for a free trial on that website as well. So today we've got a little bit, we're going to jump around a little bit. We've got various new features in various aspects of the product. So bear with me as I run through this. Before I get started, I do need to get through a quick disclaimer, so bear with me while I read through that. The risk of loss in trading can be substantial, regardless whether it's in securities, futures, contracts, or foreign exchange. You should therefore carefully consider whether such trading is suitable for you in the light of your circumstances and financial resources. You may sustain a total loss of your funds that you deposit with your broker to establish or maintain a position in the commodity, future, or foreign exchange markets, and you may incur losses beyond these amounts. You can learn more about these risks by inquiring with your broker directly. And finally, this is a presentation brought to you by NinjaTrader LLC, a software development company which owns and supports the NinjaTrader trading platform. NinjaTrader LLC is an affiliated company to this NinjaTrader brokerage. This presentation is for informational purposes only and is not a solicitation or recommendation to buy or sell security, future, or foreign exchange contract. Any questions that are not related to the NinjaTrader trading platform should be sent to your brokerage firm directly. Okay, with that out of the way, let's get started. So I've got a workspace preloaded and built for today's webinar. Today I'm going to be running a advanced in development build of NinjaTrader, because I am going to take a minute at the end of the webinar to show off some new features and functionalities which are in the works and will be coming soon. So stick around for that. For now, I'd like to start around with two major new features, which is the Market Watch and a new experimental AI strategy generator we shipped in the last version of NinjaTrader. For those of you not keeping up, we are in let's go to the release notes here. We are in release 18 of NinjaTrader 8 product. That came out May 6th, 2019. And we also had a major version come out on release 17, January 28th, 2019. And this just goes along with our continuous improvement to the product. And we do in product announcements anytime we do a major release like that. So you would have seen a pop-up in your platform to download the product, which the new product that we released on May 6th has this new Market Watch feature, which is the new window that we put together. And I'm looking at the NinjaTrader Control Center here. I've got a workspace with a couple of charts, a superdome, market analyzer, and on the left here, we've got a Market Watch window. And the idea behind Market Watch was it's geared towards somebody that wants to have an overview of the various markets they may be following. And in the past, the window that you did that with would have been a market analyzer. And a market analyzer is a great way to pack a bunch of data into a small area. Where the Market Watch excels is it gets you a larger view of that data, and it shows the market change over time quickly in a tile-like format. So we've added the ability to, it will request built off 1 minute bars, and you add an instrument by right-clicking on the market analyzer, our Market Watch window, and you can click Add Instrument, and you can add a list of instruments by selecting an already defined instrument list, or you can add an individual instrument or search for an instrument. As you do that and kind of click around, you'll notice that we have window linking support for this as well, just like we do in the Market Analyzer. So as I click on Apple, I've linked these charts to the 1 minute chart in the middle, the daily chart here on the bottom. And as I select and quickly want to move between instruments, I can just quickly click and click to go through those instruments. And I can also use my keyboard here. So here I'm using my keyboard and just keyboarding up and down to just really quickly run through a bunch of instruments. We've got the net change, final net change in the top right-hand corner here, and then the last quote as well. There are some various properties and customizations you can do as you go into the properties. Of course, you can customize the colors to your liking. You can also set various tile sizes. So we made sure to include a bunch of default sizes here so that you can fit this into your workspace in whatever way makes sense to you. So if I go down here to extra small, for example, and click Apply, so now I'm going to have a much smaller configuration here. If I don't want to dedicate this much space in my workspace, I can just kind of, if I want to have just a quick bar on the left, you know, to run through a bunch of markets really fast, you can configure that as well. So I'll go through and set this back to medium here. Large, you can take a look at that. We've got large and extra large here. And this is best for if you just have a few instruments that you generally trade or keep an eye on. So it's just a balance. You pick whatever size you'd like, depending on how many instruments you're wanting to keep your eye on. And as we're at the end of the day here, so market data is going to start to slow down, and we've got completely built charts here. At the beginning of the day, you'll notice that this chart just starts building from left to right. So you'll be able to have a frame of reference there between all the instruments that are in your Market Watch window. So that's pretty nice. So the Market Watch window, just some innovation that we put together to just make it easier to implement and watch and have overview over the markets that you trade. So that's something that we put together in the latest release. We hope you like it. So the next thing we put together and we released with the latest release is an experimental window. And if I go to the strategy analyzer here, we've got a new, for those of you that may not know, strategy analyzer, this is how you do your development of various, you develop your strategies, And then you use the strategy analyzer to analyze your strategies, and you've got various ways to analyze a strategy. You can do back tests to prove something out in past historical data. You can do an optimization, which, let's say you have 4 or 5 strategy parameters. I've got an SMA and an SMA 21 period, and I want to see how well it does with a 22 period, 23 period, 24 period, and let me know which one was the best of that combination. That's what you'll use an optimization for. We have the walk forward optimization, which is how you forward test. Let's say you do an optimization, you come to a conclusion that, SMA 21, that was the best combination for your strategy. Now we're going to forward test that on a new set of newly seen data that we haven't seen to validate that it actually works in forward testing. That's called a walk forward optimization. We've had since day one with NinjaTrader 8 as well. We introduced this with what's called a multi-objective optimization. This allows you to optimize towards 2 different objectives or more. So things like, I want the lowest drawdown with the highest profit, or I want the maximum exposure or maximum adverse exposure versus and the lowest or maximum favorable exposure versus adverse exposure, for example. That's the multi-objective optimization, and you can kind of use this Pareto type analysis to get the strategy that has the best trade-off between the 2 without sacrificing, with the least sacrifice in both domains. So that's multi-objective optimization. And what we've recently introduced here with the strategy analyzer, for those of you that write and develop strategies, is something called AI Generate Experimental. And it's got an experimental tag on it. This is I wouldn't say it's the first time we're dabbling with artificial intelligence. So we're using a genetic algorithm which is just a form of machine learning, to generate a set of entry and exit conditions dynamically on a strategy. So in traditional strategy development, you would come along, you'd type out your strategy inside a NinjaScript. You'd say, I want to go long when SMA 20 crosses over the SMA 40, basic SMA crossover strategy. You'd hard define that entry condition and then test it to see how well it did. Well, this flips that on its end. And what we did is, now, instead of testing an already defined rigid structure of a strategy, we now we'll build a strategy, and we call them nodes, and we'll build a strategy based on various, combining those conditions in various ways and putting that through a genetic algorithm and what that means is genetic algorithm, it's modeled over genetics or after genetics, where you've got a set generation size. It'll randomly populate that. It'll do what's called mutating to change up the conditions from generation to generation, and but still keeping those things that produce the best result. So it'll kind of hone in on a certain target. And we've also done some stuff with trying to figure out, how do we define a good strategy, which is actually a hard problem to solve. And for example, we're now working on something, we define strength in a strategy as something that has a good balance of has a lot of trades. We'll try to weigh something that has a lot of trades over something that maybe just trades once or twice, has a Hail Mary. That's pretty common in strategy development. You'll get one strategy that just, it just does a couple of trades. Those trades are really great trades because they're long running Hail Mary trades, but there's really no value to that because it's not something you can count on in the forward or moving forward. You want something that can produce a decent amount of trades that will allow you to understand if your entry and exit conditions are reliable, reproducible. And so having a larger number of trades is definitely more beneficial. So we definitely weigh strategy parameters, which will produce more trades higher than those that produce less trades. And there's various other conditions and things like this that we've put together and there's a bit of, room here, and this is why we've got the experimental tag on it, because we're looking for feedback on this, because this will, we need to have some feedback on this to see, you know, what's being generated out there, because this will run for a long time on a machine. So when you first select AI generate, you'll get a warning here, and it'll say, this requires a lot of CPU intensive resources, and this will come off. If I ran a basic test this morning. Unfortunately, I closed my NinjaTrader here, so I can't show you those results. But if I run a basic test here with default settings, this might take about an hour and a half to run, and that's a low amount of time for this to run. For this to really test a lot of conditions, it needs to put in a lot of compute time. And since how you pick what you're going to test with and what NinjaTrader will combo things together with is things like, you can come in here and select the indicators. And so here all are selected here by default. And so NinjaTrader will take every combination and randomly pick some condition here. So, you know, SMA 17, stochastics 14, various combinations of indicators and parameters, and it will layer them as well. So it'll use combinations of them, 1, 2, 3 layers deep. And we also allow candlestick scanning as well in combination, along with some other conditions like the day of week. So what happens if I only traded on Thursdays? What happens if I only traded on Fridays? And exit conditions the same. If I use a stop and a target with a certain parameter, if I always close on Thursdays, and you can toggle those settings there. Pick some generation size. I usually stick with defaults to start, and then run it, see how long it takes, and you can pump these numbers up or reduce them based on how much time you have to spend. Select your instrument and time frame and click run. And as you do that, and I'll go ahead and do that here really briefly. So I'm going to click run. Now this is pretty CPU intensive, so I'm not going to run it for too long. So I'm going to go ahead and quick abort out of here. And we're going to get back some results here, as long as we got through at least one run here. Okay, let's give that one more try. We need to get through at least one generation, so maybe we let that run for a little bit. And so you got a time remaining here. It looks like with this set, this generation will take about 30 minutes or so to run. And it's just going through and testing various conditions and keeping the best conditions. And what we're looking for is feedback on this. So if you run and what you'll get on the output is you will get and you'll see here I've got a performance rating now of 1.47 here. So if I go ahead and click abort, I should be able to see a strategy result here. So we got at least one generation done here. Okay, so I've got some performance characteristics here. I've got some strategies that are doing a lot of trades here. So here's a strategy with 118 trades. It's got a percent profitable of 55.93%, a performance rating of 1.6. And if I click view here, the output of what we're going to look at, if I click view, we're going to get a NinjaScript editor with the artificially intelligently generated strategy. And in this case, we're looking at some basic code here. I didn't let this run very long. This is doing something with a VMA indicator with a 9 and a 9. It's got also, and then entering long on that. And then it's got a PPO indicator in use here as well, and exiting on that. So if you like the strategy, or you want to use it as a jumping off base, this is great for idea generation. So if you like the strategy, you can go and save it and change it now moving forward as you like. So This is a quick preview of the new AI Generate feature. It's a kind of hybrid feature which allows those of you that are looking for new ideas, want to let the computer, chew on a problem in various combinations, you now can do so with NinjaTrader. So that is the Strategy Analyzer AI Generate feature. Let me go ahead and close out of that. Alrighty. So those have been two major features we've shipped in the recent release. Let's go ahead and move on to my next slide here. And I'm just using the slides as a guide here as I'll show you all basically everything we've got here. On Market Analyzer, we've shipped some new stuff here as well. We've got the time and sales trend column, days until rollover, and one I personally love, color distribution column. So let me minimize this here. I've got my Market Analyzer in the top right-hand corner here. And I've added these columns here. And what we can do is the days until rollover is pretty simple. This one was on request from people that trade futures. This is not a required column by any means, but what you can do is add this days until rollover. This is just the number of days, just so you can keep an eye on how many days are left until we have a rollover. That way, you can trigger your rollover logic, and how you do that is if you want to do an auto rollover, which is just what I do anymore with NinjaTrader 8, is you go up here to Tools, Database Management, and then up here at the very top, there's a Rollover Futures Instruments sections. And here we can select Rollover button if there was anything that was expired. In this case, I don't have anything in my workspace loaded that is expired, so the instrument is blank. I have nothing to do. But tomorrow, when we got 1 day left, when the 6E0619 rolls over into the 6E0919 contract, I'll see this indication here in the Market Analyzer column, and that's what I trigger and know to go into the database and roll it over to the next contract. So days until rollover, kind of a nice quality feature there. Time and sales trend is something that we added as well. This is just think of it very similar to the time and sales window, where if I select an instrument here, I'll go with ES0919, and markets are relatively slow right now since we're in after hours trading, but at least we're getting something. But you'll see that as we have a green, yellow print, or an orange print, and then 4 or 5 more green prints here, I will see that same coloring here in the time and sales trend, and the coloring being the traded at ask, at bid, or between ask and bid colors. And so you can kind of get a sense on how that thing is ticking, either ticking up, ticking down, right from the time and sales trend tape. So just a way to get the time and sales into the Market Analyzer. There are various settings you can do to customize that, to change the colors. You can make this wider as well. If you really do enjoy the feature, I kind of like it just having some kind of secondary info there, so I can the nice thing about the Market Analyzer is that you've got a bunch of instruments all slammed in together here closely. So if there is some pressure on the markets all of a sudden really fast, and you're getting a bunch of at bids or at asks trades across the entire market, of course you can see that through trades, but you can also see it through the time and sales trend column here as well. So a nice new feature we've recently added. The next thing we've added, which I'll go ahead and add a column here, which let me go ahead and go to columns. And what we'll do is we'll just do it on one I already have on here. Really, you would use this on an indicator or net change, but let's say this days until expiration. It should be a good way to show it. So if I go to days until rollover here, we've got a new feature here called Enable Color Distribution. And if I check mark that and leave these all at default here, we get a bunch of properties here. They're just color properties. Go ahead and click Apply. And so now what I'll have is things that are the max number will have the most shading, and things that are close to the smaller number will have the least shading. So in this case, we've got a pretty large gambit here between 91 and just 1 day left happens to be what it is. But if you wanted to highlight, and we could flip that around too to highlight lower ranges as well. But it's just a nice way to highlight max and min values right in the market analyzer. Before, you couldn't do that in a gradient type fashion. You'd have to just set some static number to check against. And here it's kind of dynamic in that it'll just work based on whatever the numbers are of everything in that area. So to get a better take on that, let me go to columns here. Let's go ahead and add, let's see what would be a good example. Let's do an indicator, ADX, and let's load that up. Okay, and now I've got an ADX column here with a bunch of values. Now I'm going to right click again, go columns. I'm going to go to my ADX column, select enable color distribution, click OK. Give that a second to load up. And so now you can see I've got a gradient color distribution highlighting highlighting the differences between the min and the max seen in that column. Okay. So I like that one. Definitely end up using that one and turning that one on all my market analyzers now, which is the color distribution column. Okay, so let's move on to charts. Charts, we've got a various new drawing tools, indicators, and chart styles I'd like to show off quickly. Things where we've been iterating on charts is we've been adding a few new drawing tools, such as the path drawing tool. Also, we've noticed a lot of people that are using third-party indicators to show a toolbar. So we went ahead and added a drawing tool tile toolbar. So let's go ahead and get into that so you know what I mean. So let's switch over to the ES here so we have a little more history on the daily here. MES is just open. Boy, those are trading nicely. So got a lot of activity there on the MES versus the ES. I think that guy will be sticking around. So let's go to, we want to show off the indicator first. So let's go to indicators. And let's go to the drawing tool tile indicator. We'll add this up here, click OK. So now what we're going to get is we get this panel in the chart. I can drag it around. I can customize what is in the panel as well. For now, it's just some default allotment of drawing tools. And so now if I would like to add a rectangle on the chart, I just click that. I can quickly draw a rectangle. So it's just a quick toolbar access to drawing, easy access to those indicators which you use most. Again, it is highly configurable, so you can set the number of rows you would like. So if you want it to be longer and just have 1 row or 2 rows or 3 rows, and if you expand the drawing tools here, you can check mark which drawing tools you would like to use. So if I go ahead and select the new path drawing tool and click OK, I'll get to that in another row here. If I now look for that here, so we got extended line, vertical line, and path here. So path is what we recently added. It's the newest addition to the line section of drawing tools here, which is path down here at the bottom. And what path does is it's just a simple, if you want to draw multiple segments, so let's say I want to highlight 1, 2, 3, 4, and double click, I now have a path, and I can move those around as well after the fact. Kind of draw shapes with it as well. But what I can also do is use it as kind of a makeshift Elliott wave tool. So let's say if I wanted to go, let's say here, say click to there, there for now. Now if I double click on that to go to properties and hit the show count here, Click OK. Now we'll get a count of each point. So point 1, point 2, point 3. So now you've got a counting tool if you want to count, lower highs, lower lows, count swings, that kind of thing. You now can do that with the path drawing tool. So that was a commonly requested feature, which we went ahead and added in the product. So, and you can find that in the drop-down as well, just under path, hotkey, control 4. Okay, so that is the path drawing tool. The next thing we've added is we call it the trend line indicator. And let's go down to the daily chart here. I'll go down to indicators. I'll add the trend lines indicator. Trend lines is similar. There had been a download on our website for the longest time, freely available on our ecosystem website, called Auto Trend Tools. It was built by Ray, our founder of NinjaTrader, long time ago. And what we've done is just brought it into the product and kind of made it a first-class citizen and added a few more features to that. If you just add it on just like so if I click OK, there's a strength property, number of trend lines, and an opacity setting, and you can also set alerts as well. So if it passes through your trend line, you'll get an alert. But if I click OK here, if you just do it by default, it's going to give you the last found trend line, whatever that is. And this will update as the chart continues to build. So if you're on something that's more volatile than a daily chart, something like a 1 minute, 5 minute, 60 minute, and you got bars coming in that might change that found trend line, it will redraw for you whatever the most current is. And then as you get a cross down, so let's say this market comes down to this trend line and acts as support, if it passes through it, you can set it up to give you an alert, or you can also define many more trend lines to see as well. So right now there's just one. So if I go to something like 8, click OK. So now I get the last found 8 trend lines. And you'll notice that the opacity is less on those trend lines as it goes back in history. And that's intended so that it gets the trend lines which are older kind of fade less and less into view. So you can adjust that if it's a little too low for you there. And strength, as it is with any auto trend line detection, strength is what you need to define for how it defines a trend, a swing high or a swing low. This is the number of bars that's used to define a unique swing high or swing low. This is set to 5, which for a daily chart is not too much. If you increase that, you'll notice that you'll see a different set of trends. So this, I went too high, so let's try 10 here. And so now every 10 bars, we need a specific swing high. So now we've got this swing low here. The most recent trend high here is this swing low to this swing low here. And you can see how that kind of followed along there, broke through it. If you had an alert on trend, as this went up through the trend line, you would have seen an alert. And now we're above that trend line right now. So that's the trend line indicator. We've also added a few rendering style additions in the chart styles. So in the chart style selector, we've got 2 new chart styles here. We've got something called equivolume and something called hollow candlestick. Hollow candlestick, pretty simple. This has been requested for a long time. It's just gives you a hollow candlestick, so you just have painting on the outside. The interior is not painted. So it's just a preference for chart style, and we now support that. The other one which we now support is called equivolume, and it's a little more complicated than that, since it actually, what it does is it actually changes the bar size depending on how much volume there was relative to its peers. So in this case, you can see the candles are much more smaller in this area. And now as we start to go down, the candles sizes and the widths are much wider. So in this case, the volume in this area was much greater than the volume in this area. This is called equivolume, and it's just a way to integrate the, if you end up finding that you have to have a volume indicator on all your charts on the bottom, kind of taking up real estate, you can combine those two things into a single chart style. Kind of neat. So that's the equivolume bar style. The next thing we've done is, for those of you, a common request is, I want to have an indicator, but I just want to know what the price of that indicator is. So let's say if I go to indicators here, I go to, let's say, prior day open, high, low, close, for example, and I click OK on that, and let's add it to the chart. So here I've got my prior day open, high, low, close, and there are lines on the chart right now. So you might not want that clutter on your chart, and you may just want some marker on the right-hand side of where that prior day open, high, low, close was. So you now can do that. You can right-click, go to indicators, prior day open, high, low, close. You can go down to the plot. So let's do that for this prior open plot here. We now have a new plot style here called price box. I'll go ahead and select that. I still can select my color. As I do so, that line goes away. I now have a box here in the right-hand side, and so it just cleans the chart up. So for those of you that, you might, you get to that point in any trader's kind of career where you get into indicator overload, you start adding a bunch of stuff, and you may not be ready to get rid of any of that stuff, but it's just, it's cluttering up your chart. This gives you options of which to keep that data in the price spot area without having to remove the whole thing from your chart. So just more options, more customization, more configurability, and again, just something that was requested from users of the product to implement, and we saw the ability to do so. So that is the price box plot style. Alrighty, so let's move on to the next slide here. So a bunch of general improvements we've had throughout the last 6 months or so. We've added some quality of life improvements, things like we've got the ability to have a bunch of tabs in a window. So let's say if I add another, let's say, NQ chart here, click OK. So I've got now a window with the ES and the NQ on a single window. And we've always, since the day one in NinjaTrader, had the ability to duplicate this tab into a new window. So if you wanted to pull, copy this tab into a new window, you could do so. No problem. What we didn't have until recently was, let's say I have a bunch of tabs. So I've got a chart set up with a bunch of tabs. Let's say I've got the same instrument. Maybe I've got a 1-minute chart, a 5-minute chart, a 1-day chart, and it's just part of my workflow that I just tab through what I'd like. And I'd like to set up a secondary monitor with the same configuration, the same chart. But I don't want to have to set up each one of those tabs again. So now if you right-click in the caption bar up here on the top left, you now get the duplicate window functionality, which will duplicate the entire window in its entirety, including all of its tabs. Huge time saver, huge time saver. So that was recently added. We added the ability to set up a new feature in the product, which you could always do this, but again, we're at the phase of NinjaTrader where we're iterating on our product, we're making things easier to do. And one of the things that people always ask for is when I set up my alerts, I've set up an alert in my chart, my price, my trend alert, and I'm not on my computer all the time. I'd like to get a text message on that. You could always do this in the past. It wasn't always easy to do. Now we've made that setup easier. So when you go to Tools, Options, and we'll go into Share Services, which is configured here. We'll click Add a Share Service. And I've got the ability now to set up a text message via email. So what I mean by it's always been possible to do, what you may or may not know is that almost all providers, cell phone providers out there, and we've set up a bunch by default here. We've got Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, and Sprint. And if I select a provider, it will use a phone number, which is automatically provided, to translate an email into an SMS message for your phone. So if you put your phone number in here, and then just include this address at the end, so @vtext.com, that will actually translate that email into a text message to your phone automatically. Most people don't know that. So this allows you a quick and easy way to get SMS alerts right through your phone provider. And you can set that up here. You could have done it through the email, like I said, but it just wasn't obvious. This makes it much obvious and easier to configure. Another commonly requested feature that we went ahead and took care of with the latest release is a go-to feature in charts. So let's say you're on the ES chart, you knew that there was some economic release, 3 months ago, and you want to try to go back there 3 months, go back to March 1st, okay, there it is. So that wasn't too bad, but maybe I'd like to just, maybe I've got more going on, I've got a bigger chart, more chart space back, I'd like to just go to a location in the chart. So now if you right click on the scroll bar, we've got a go to feature here. And when you do that, I can now specify a time or a date. So on this daily chart, I can now go, let's say I want to go back to that March 1st date right there. Click OK, and now I'm right there. That'll be the March 1st bar right there. So go to feature in charts, something that's been requested for quite a while. We've also added some miscellaneous things such as, you can now right click, some more customization. We've added the ability to change the chart properties so that you can have a background image in the back. So if you want to have, a lot of people were installing third-party add-ons which would allow you to do this. That was we'll want to reduce complexity there. And so if you would like to just do this by doing chart background image, you can then select, we loaded just a couple by default here, but you'll likely go and find your own. And again, just customizing the platform to you. If I go ahead and select that, now I've got a background image in the back. So chart background image recently added. We've also done a few other things. We've been working on modernizing some areas. In the last couple releases, we've modernized a bunch of icons. Those have worked out well, and we've got good feedback on that. We're now also modernized a bunch of sounds. So the connected sound, the order-filled sounds, things like this, on a new install will now be updated and kind of more recent. Things like that, as we continue to invest in our product and iterate on it, we will continue to modernize. And in that same theme, for those of you that work with NinjaScript and might be using Visual Studio in the latest release, if you go to the NinjaScript editor, in the last release, we now have the Visual Studio now supports Visual Studio 2019. So if you want to edit your code right in Visual Studio 2019, you can now do that. So also recently supported. As far as our order flow tools, we view this as an area that we're going to continue to work on. We've done a little bit in the last release as far as improving order flow tools. One of the major things was putting a volume profile in the margin or on the right-hand side of the chart. You can now do that. But in the next release, we are adding and continuing to invest on the Order Flow Plus toolset. So look forward to that. And also, A last commonly requested thing I'll show off in the charts here is trigger an ATM strategy via an alert. So if I now go in here and go to indicators, let's go ahead and set up 2 SMA indicators, just to set up an example here. So SMA 14, SMA 21, click OK. I've got 2 simple moving averages here. As I now right-click, go to alerts. So let's say I want to set up an alert whenever those moving averages cross. So we'll call this the moving average crossover alert. Go ahead and add some conditions here. Here's my indicator. I'll say when my 14 moving average crosses above my 21-day moving average, so this is a long crossover. On the actions now, you had the ability in the past to, of course, you can do your basics like play a sound, share a message, show a pop-up dialog, which, by the way, with a share a message, you can now select that you can send these over text as well now if you set up a text share adapter. So you can do that now with the alerts. And now on the submit and order functionality, you've got the ability to select an ATM strategy here now. So now, when you want to go long in this scenario, you want to set up a quick and dirty, I call this kind of semi-automation, if you will, or a semi-building a kind of, partly automated strategy where you define a quick entry condition with an alert builder, but then it give you the ability to submit an order to go long. I mean, that's basically a strategy, right? You just didn't have to code anything to achieve it. Now, if you want to have an ATM strategy attached to that, so you have a profit target and a stop loss to protect that, I mean, that completes a large portion of the picture as far for those users that want to use this for some simple automation, but might not want to code a strategy. So I'm excited to see how far you guys go with that. And another commonly requested feature. I've gone through a bunch of things that we've shipped in the last 2 releases. We will continue to iterate on the product and launch new features and enhance existing ones, and continue to fix any bugs or anything like that reported to us. And what I'd like to do to finish the webinar is I would like to give you a quick preview of something that's in new development. This is not available now. We do plan to make it available in the future, which is the first support of options in NinjaTrader. Super excited about this. This is a in development option chain window, which will be available in the next release of NinjaTrader. We plan to ship this for options on futures through NinjaTrader brokerage. And we've spent some time building an option chain UI, which should be a joy to use. How it works is you select a master instrument, such as the ES 0919 here. We will then query the available options from the provider. In this case, it's CQG, it's Continuum / NinjaTrader Continuum. And here, and the market is not very active right now, so we don't have much going on in terms of activity. I loaded this up earlier today, but we've got the ability to see the entire option chain, number of days left till expiration, and link these to an order entry window. So if I wanted to kind of combo this with a, for example, basic entry window. So now if I hit this link here, we'll go red, select an instrument here. And so what it will do is it will pre-fill the instrument to this, it'll build this long chain here, which how this is this is the option instrument. This is the expiry, put or call, and then the strike of the instrument. And that's built automatically by you just selecting an option in the option chain. We get the ask, bid, and last, which right now there's no current trading on it. And then I've got the ability to submit a buy limit order, sell limit order, and place orders on that option. And then here we've got the in the money display here on the left for calls, and the money for puts, top right for puts. We've got this kind of selection bar here depending on which option you have selected. Then we've got a marker here for the last traded price, so of the underlying. And you can kind of expand as many options chains as you would like here, scroll through them, and start to work with options data. So we're very excited to be working on the option chain window within NinjaTrader. It's something that I don't have any release dates or expectations on when this will be released. As I mentioned, this is in development right now. We're running an experimental build with kind of hot off the press code here. And so just to give you a taste of what's new to come and what's coming in the future releases of NinjaTrader, we've got a lot more coming. We've already built quite a number of features that are ready for our next release, which I'm super excited about. And so with that demo being done and kind of showing you the options, I went through a bunch of features that we've added in the product over the last 6 months or so. I'd like to now open up the room for a Q&A session. So I think we've got a few minutes here, Terry, to run through a few questions. I think if you guys have any questions on anything I've shown here today, please feel free to enter those in the chat room there, and we'll be Terry will take a look at those, and we'll answer any questions you have. Thank you so much, guys.
Hi, guys. Yeah, feel free to start typing your questions in, and I will ask them to Brett. There was a few. Give me a sec. I'm trying to read back through some of the questions while you were talking.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, it says, I've used the AI generate feature a few times. Regarding the implementation of generic backtesting, can you advise how many CPU threads NinjaTrader is capable of using for this feature?
Oh, sure. So how it works is we scan the machine to see how many cores it has. So if you're on an 8-core machine or a 4-core machine, then we use that as the number of threads of which we will spawn as worker threads. And then this gives us the ability to use the most resources possible so that, of course, we can't control what core it will eventually run on. That's the operating systems. That's in the operating systems purview. It's a scheduler, and it kind of schedules work to go on cores as it sees fit. But we found by just creating 4 cores, you're on a 4-core machine, the operating system kind of figures it out and starts, parallelizing it all on all 4 available cores. So that's how it works.
Okay. Does the AI strategy generator allow the user to test or use a custom indicator or add-on?
It does not at this time. So you can select just the standard default indicators and candlesticks and that combination right now today. As part of receiving that feedback using custom indicators and things, that's actually the #1 thing on the feedback list, which we'll be taking a look at here for if not the next release after that for sure. So.
Okay. He says, I do not like the new lady sounds. Can I put the old lady sounds back in?
Yep, we didn't get rid of any sounds files. What we did now is they're just generated by a computer.
Okay.
Funny story, we actually had a client long time ago back in the old NinjaTrader, I don't even know, NinjaTrader 1, 2, 3, or 4 days, that actually just provided some sound files from his wife. And those just were the sound files we used for many, many years. And so now what we're doing is we're just use computer automated voice to create those sound files. This allows us The main reason why we did that is because as we expand NinjaTrader, NinjaTrader is used in more regions of the world. You know, we've got translations now in Portuguese, Spanish, German, French also, and Russian. And we can actually now generate those sound files to be regionalized so that it's the right language for the right region. So just as we continue to grow, continue to offer the NinjaTrader product in more regions, it's just one of those things that we wanted to change for consistency purpose. And all the old files are still there. If you go into Tools, Options, go to Sound Files down to the bottom here, and then just select a sound file here. You'll see all the old files are here. So order filled, order pending. You can go ahead and set those back to those older WAV files.
Okay. It says, I would definitely love if you guys started making the order flow values available for strategy script, example, order flow trade detector, and also volume profile values for current and previous sessions.
Understood. So on those ones, you've got to actually, because they rely on tick data under the hood, you have to load that data ahead of time inside of your strategy, and it's just not as easy and simple as we'd like it to be to allow that. With that being said, if you write into me at NinjaTrader platform support at ninjatrader.com, put attention Brett in the subject line, and just mention that you were asking about access to those values. We should be able to put together something to where you might be able to either get the underlying data you need to make your own calculation, which is what we advise to those that want to do that same thing. Since sometimes, if you want access to that data, you may not want that exact access. Maybe you want to have some flavor to it. You want to customize it a little differently. That's something that we can definitely help guide you along. So just do attention Brett in an email. Let me know what you're after, and then let me take a look and see what we can get over your way.
Okay. NT had an account group which let you place an order in multiple accounts with a single command. Any thoughts on how to do this in NT8?
Yeah, so there was I think it was called account group actually with NinjaTrader 7. We de-supported that for various reasons. It gets a little tricky with part fills and how to manage that, and you've got an ATM strategy. You're submitting a stop loss based on the fill of an entry, but oh no, it only fills in 1 out of 2 of the accounts, or oh no, it fills in a different price on one account than it does on the second account, or I submitted an order, but I didn't have enough money in the second account, so that order got rejected for margin reasons, but the first one's okay, but I didn't notice it, and I got in trouble. There was just so many cases where it would end up biting you, to where the underlying brokerage on the brokerage side usually can do it better. They can kind of extrapolate that away, so they can set it up to where you can have, let's say, one account. It looks to you as one account, but at the end of the day, they kind of percentage it out between multiple accounts. We definitely are suggesting people look into that as a first. That's kind of a first citizen type approach to solving that problem. And since we had so many issues with that, we no longer support that with setting up an account group inside of NinjaTrader 8 and just rely on brokerage support of an account group.
Okay. Can you explain how to read the choppiness indicator?
Choppiness indicator? Yeah, let's take a look. I actually never have used that thing myself, but let's take a look here. So we've got this eye in the top right-hand corner here. So choppiness index designed to determine if the market is choppy, trading sideways, or not choppy, trading within a trend in either direction. So if I take that at its face value, what that would mean is if it's within the boundaries, it's not trending. And then if it's outside of the range of 40, or it looks like 40 and 60, let's see. There's a lower and an upper at 62.8 and 38.2. So to give you an exact explanation on that, I can only speculate as to what that's used for, which is just if I take that as face value, you'll get an index that's higher in a choppy market, meaning it's not moving up or down, than you will, and you get a lower value when it is trending. And I might have that reverse, but again, that's just not an indicator I personally have used in a long time. So if you'd like some more details on that, I can definitely look into the code for that. It would be just send me an email at platformsupport@ninjatrader.com, attention Brett, and just ask, you're in the Features IO webinar, you wanted some more exact details on the choppiness index indicator, and I can get that over to you, no problem. So good question.
Okay. One feature I've been requesting for many years at NT8, which was available in NT7, was being able to combine scaling in and out or trades under one trade.
Can you ask that one more time?
Yeah, I'm trying to reread it, make sure I can say it. One feature I've been requesting for many years at NT8, which was available in NT7, was being able to combine scaling in and out of trades under one trade.
Okay. Is that user still there, and can maybe rephrase that question?
Under trade performance.
Oh, under trade performance. I see. Okay, got it. Let me go there. I think what this person's talking about. Right. I believe this person's talking about the group by ATM strategy feature that we had in the trade performance window in NinjaTrader 7. In this case, we took some metrics when we were implementing NinjaTrader 8. That feature added a bunch of complexity to the calculations of the trade performance window. And when we looked at the metrics, we only had very few people actually even using it. So what we ended up doing is just dropping that feature for NinjaTrader 8. So we do not have that feature with NinjaTrader 8, unfortunately.
Okay.
And by the way, if that person is still listening and I'm off mark with that group by ATM feature, that's what I believe you're talking about.
Yes.
If that's not what you're talking about, then please email me or further clarify in the chat if you're still here. Under email me platformsupport@ninjatrader.com. Attention, Brett.
Okay. He says
I can get some more info.
He says if you scale in and out of a position, I used to be able to find my average stats.
Interesting. Yeah, we might have to talk more about that one then, because you definitely still get average stats and things like that within the trade performance window. So maybe we just need to get a phone call on that one.
Okay.
Just to further clarify.
He says he'll email you.
Okay. Yeah, just put attention, Brett, there.
Is there a way to add custom colors to the superdome? Also, would like to adjust the size of the boxes in the dome ladder.
So the size of the dome, completely resizable. You just move it up or down here. If you're as far as a width perspective, so you can kind of customize that however you'd like. As far as the height of it, that's set by the text size or the font size of the superdome, which you can go into right-click, go to Price Ladder Font here. If I select a higher font, like a 22 or something like that, click Apply. Now I'll get a much wider box size here. And then as far as colors, I can right-click Properties. There's a whole color section here, just expand it. And you can take a look at all the various color options and things like that that you can customize, which there's quite a few.
Okay. Oh, okay, very nice.
So Terry, any more questions?
Yeah, I'm reading right now. Okay, we're over time, so I'm gonna try to find one last one. Okay, is there a way of copying a chart with its indicators from one window into another chart window?
Yeah, there's
Sort of
actually like
maybe
3 or
like
4 ways nowadays to
saving
do
like
it.
a template is what I'd be thinking.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So you can either just duplicate it one-off. So let's say if I want to right-click on this tab here, duplicate in new window, it's going to take all those indicators I had set up, those SMAs, choppiness, everything will come across. Now, if I want to actually create a template because I'm going to be using this across many windows, or I have a bunch of windows and I want to switch to this configuration or set of indicators, right-click, templates, save as, give it a name. So webinar template 1, click save. So now go to the window that you want to load it on, right-click, templates, load, and you can select that template, load it up. And this gives you multiple ways to move those settings from chart to chart. You can also use the new duplicate window if you have a bunch of tabs in a single chart in a single window. You can duplicate it that way as well.
Okay. Thank you for the webinar, the information, and for spending some time with us this evening, Brett.
Awesome. Well, again, congratulations on 10 years. I'm excited to see where the next 10 years goes. And if you have any further questions after this webinar, you're thinking about something and you want to get a question answered, we've got a great platform support team. You can contact us right through our email address. Our guys are pretty fast to get back responses. Usually 15 minutes during work hours is pretty usual to get a response. So if you guys, and we've got a huge section of resources on all the stuff that we've done. We've kind of written documentation in our help guide on all the new features and functionality, which can always be accessed by pressing the F1 on any of the F1 key on any of the windows in the product, or just by going to help guide. We've got a pretty extensive help guide resource. So again, appreciate everybody's time. Always look forward to these webinars and see you next time.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Alrighty.